Okay, I want to thank you for joining the TWL webinar, and I'm going to turn it over to Andy. Andy, I'm sorry, I need to make you the presenter here.
No problem. While Gary is doing that, do feel free to enter questions as you have them. You don't need to hold them. I'll try and keep an eye on the question bank, so if we're going through something and you have a question specifically about that, I'll try and answer it at that time before we move on. But like Gary said, I'm going to try and get through this quickly and leave some time for Q&A at the end, and we can come back around to anything you'd like. Let me show my screen. Hopefully you can see my screen here.
Yes, we can.
My presentation that is not in presentation mode because there's not much to present. So I'll get started here. Hopefully most of you know me. If you don't, I do have a consulting firm and have done a number of TWL implementations, and so I'm kind of keen on reporting and the downfalls, the letdowns, the missing reports that are in TWL, coming up with custom reports or outside solutions to fill those gaps, and then also getting along with some of the TWL reports you might not know are there or don't know you need to keep an eye on. So we're going to go through this super fast, and for me, you know, that's lightning speed because I go quickly to begin with, but there's a lot to cover here. My goal is to just expose you to as much as we can here. If you need more detail, please feel free to follow up with me, ask questions, post it on the user community, and we can start a discussion about it. But some of these things, some of these reports and concepts, we could spend an entire day or a week going through training on them. So we're not even gonna graze the surface of it here. I just want to throw it at you and make sure that you know what it is. Okay, so here's roughly our agenda. First, I'm going to go through what I consider the standard TWL housekeeping tasks, what you should be keeping an eye on every day just to keep things running smoothly and not letting stuff fall between the cracks. And then I have some examples from Hyperion or Brio, you may call it, that are just some reports that I've used historically to provide some information for TWL users, whether it is ongoing information or info they used at a go live or during implementation. And then I'll show you how I've moved some of that stuff over to MIT's report, which is really just a SQL a business intelligence solution. So you'll have to write some simple SQL statements, which you can even copy from Hyperion. And that allows me to create some custom reports that don't exist, or even, like it says here, replace some standard reports that, if you know TWL reports, you can't do much with them once you have them. You can view them on screen, but trying to email them to someone or get them in Excel, not a fun excursion to take. So I've made it a habit to just replace those reports, and I can email them to someone every day or once a week, and they don't have to be responsible for going to get that information. And then I do have a dashboard to show you, which is being worked on currently by MIT, and we had seen Graphic Solutions present this at their at the WMS meeting last year. They had an outside resource kind of build them a dashboard as well for open activity in the warehouse, and so I have something to present that shows similar data. And then lastly, I just wanted to wrap up with some bigger concept stuff that isn't really TWL specific, like cycle count accuracy. Will go into employee productivity a little bit earlier, and anything you might need for physical inventory or even a go live regarding variance reports or your inventory, what you're counting, what you need to recount, so on and so forth. And then hopefully plenty of time for a Q&A. So let's dig into it. Here's what I consider to be the housekeeping list. So again, please feel free to interrupt me, post a question, or let me know if I'm going too quickly or you need a repeat on anything. But active receipts is my first thing on here. And so how you go about doing this in TWL is this is the TWL online portion of the application, and I'm simply going to the receipt master, and I'm going to look for any POs that have been started but not finished. And now, what I mean by that is I'm selecting this status active here. And what this is looking for is any PO, transfer, receipt, or customer return that someone has received something, but they haven't performed the close RT function. And if you don't know or aren't crystal clear on what that means, we're not telling SX Enterprise that we've done this yet. So in this example right here, this PO, we have received this line more than 2 weeks ago, and we have this inventory in TWL, but we have yet to close this RT, so we haven't told SX yet that we've received these 40. So if these are tied to a customer order or a back order, or we want to sell this stuff, we can't do that because we don't know about it yet. So I consider this something critical to be done. You can do it each day, or you can certainly do it more frequently than that. Some people do batch receiving throughout the day, and they'll check on occasion. Harry, are you able to see that I have TWL Online open here?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay. John was just posting a question that he might not be able to see. But if anyone else is having problems seeing, please post a question. But everything should be up there right now. Okay. So this is pretty straightforward. You can run reports for this as well to show active receipts. This is what I find to be easiest. Just come in here and take a look at this each day. Perhaps this is your receiving supervisor. Just make sure that everything that has been done today is closed. Otherwise, your work really hasn't been completed. We haven't updated SX Enterprise yet. Okay. The next one is kind of on the outbound side. So are we making sure that everything we're processing is getting out the door? And there's a couple ways to go about this. My personal preference is from the order manager. And so from within the order manager, I can view my dropped orders, and I can select the order statuses that I care about. And that would basically be anything that's not shipped. And you may want to pay attention to end use as well. Okay, so if it's not shipped, I need to know about it. And you'll see here, I have a bunch of packed orders. Let's sort this by order date. I have a bunch of packed orders. I can see by the carrier here that these are will calls. So someone ordered this in December of 2015. We have packed it and have it sitting on a will call shelf, and we've yet to ship that. So maybe we need to audit our will call shelf. Is this gone? And we just never shipped it, so we haven't invoiced the customer? Or did this guy really not come and get this, and we should cancel it and put it back on the shelf? Okay. And so there are some more orders in here that we may have just missed. There was a small transfer. It's only one line. Maybe this got dropped and fell through the cracks, and no one noticed that we needed to pick this. It's going to depend on everyone's operation, what stage of orders you're looking for. Maybe you don't ship all the orders to the following morning, and you more want to focus on orders that are in pick or picked but aren't packed yet, especially if you're picked to tote and you do packing separately. So you may keep an eye on this a couple different ways. Maybe you're just looking for a certain status throughout the day, like is everything at least in the packed stage? And then later on in the afternoon or second shift, is everything that's packed actually shipped? Okay, and that might lead into a couple other pieces of functionality if you use them. So you may use the loaded stage, and you may have counter sale orders. So always make sure that we keep an eye on those as well. So I would see the loaded orders in here as well. Oftentimes folks are going directly to the exception screen here and saying, show me all my stage orders. Now these folks don't do the loaded stage, but you could look for your loaded orders here, sort it by carrier. We don't have carrier in here. You have to put carrier in by filter. So let's say you had truck 1, truck 2, and truck 3, and truck 1 left and it's supposed to be gone. I could put truck 1 in here, T1, refresh, and I shouldn't see any orders in here. All those orders should be shipped. Something along those lines. And then for the counter sales, you can see those from within TWL, or maybe put the burden on the order entry folks that are at the counter, and they can just query that all of their counter sale orders are in the ship stage. That before they go home, there is no counter sale in the pick stage. Those should all be shipped as well, and that's as easy as a, a simple search in OEIO. If I'm the taken by, I would put my initials in here. I would say, show me any counter sales that are in the pick stage. There should be nothing. And there's nothing. Okay, I get to go home, right? So really, the importance here is not just to make sure that our orders are getting delivered, but so often what I see is we deliver material, customers come in and pick up material, but we forget to process it in the system. So we're not billing them for a day, or days, or weeks, or months even, right? So we don't want to be in that boat. All right. Next one here is inventory related. And this is a zero and negative inventory. So there's a couple ways to go about this as well. There's a report. My personal preference is to use the inventory detail screen. So here's the inventory detail screen. You can just select this radio button here, less than or equal to 0, and you're going to get all the records that have 0 or less than 0 inventory. And now I need to clarify here, there's a difference between 0 and nothing in TWL. So this company obviously has a ton of products that have no inventory right now, but you're not seeing them show up here. And the reason for that is we have nothing in TWL. 0 in TWL is a placeholder, and it's there for a reason, to tell you that there's a problem. Okay, and the most common way that this 0 gets there is we have been directed to pick inventory. We've gone to this bin. We've completed our pick. TWL said, go get 10 of these. We picked 10, and then we're presented with a question because those are the last 10 on the shelf. Is there any more inventory in this bin? So it's almost like a free cycle count. This is supposed to be empty. Can you confirm that? And if you say, yes, there's still inventory here, it does not delete the inventory record. It leaves it there with a 0 quantity, letting you know you got a problem here. Someone needs to go check this out and figure out why your picker is saying you have something that you're not supposed to have. Okay, oftentimes folks are confused by that question that it's asking, is there anything left in this bin or on this shelf? But it really means for this item in particular. Okay, and negative inventory would be something along the same lines, but we have 10 in bin A and 10 in bin B in the system, but we actually have 15 and 5 physically. So the picker goes to pick from one bin. There's supposed to be 10, but they see there's 15, and they pick all 15 and disregard any warnings. There's not supposed to be 15 here. You're going to pick this bin negative. Are you sure you want to do this? Are you absolutely sure? And they just keep slamming away at, yes, 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 I want to do this. So they're going to create negative inventory in that bin. Okay, and that just needs to be reconciled with the positive inventory at another bin that's incorrect. Right on? Okay. Next one is that there are no put-away pallets in the receiving box. Now that's oversimplifying it a little bit, but what we're looking for here is to make sure that stuff isn't getting lost in receiving. So maybe you don't complete a day's work in a day's time, and we can't look at this at the end of the day and everything is put away. But at minimum, what I want to see is, this is test data, so it's old. If it's 9/29, I'm okay with this stuff being here. 9/29, 9/28, that's okay. Where is this thing? Where is this widget? That's not good. Did someone put it on shelf and forget to scan it there? And then I'm getting more and more concerned. Where is this stuff? That's getting pretty old. And if I see something from August or I see something from December, I know that we have some problems. So again, like most of the things that I say in TWL, if you stay on top of them each day, it's very easy to manage. And if you let it go for a couple weeks like this, and we have things from 2 weeks ago or a month ago, it gets really hard to backtrack. Where could this thing possibly have gone? Okay. And I meant to show, before we moved on, the 0 and negative inventory report. So the report counterpart of how I showed you in the inventory details right here. Show me the 0 quantity inventory. And it will show you. We'll just run it wide open. It'll show you everything, zeros and negatives, and there's that same record that was in the inventory detail. Okay. All right. Last, but certainly not least, are these two guys right here. So the out of balance report and the interface between SX and TWL Willet. So the out of balance report, hopefully you're familiar with this. Hopefully whoever brought you live showed you that you should be paying attention to this and clearing items off of it. This report is showing you where you have a quantity in SX and a quantity in TWL that don't match. And now there are some examples here where the lot quantities don't match, so our actual quantity on hand is fine, but our lots are out of balance. And there are also some items where we have 360 in SX and we have 0 in TWL. How did that come to pass, right? So the idea behind this report is you'll run it off hours after invoicing takes place. So this was done at 6 a.m. And we should, if our operations do stop for any period of time, we should have a moment in time where we can compare SX to TWL and say, nothing is moving right now. Whatever we show in SX should match what we have in TWL. Let's do that comparison. There's a couple things on this report I want to point out. This is something we could easily spend hours on, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here. But I want to point out a couple things that folks don't know about. There is a legend at the bottom that explains what all these buckets are off to the right of each item, but something often overlooked is this right here, non-stocks. So there's a couple items in here that have the N, and then there's one that has a B. So these are non-stocks, and this is saying we have -2 in SX. So we ship something we didn't have in SX, we're maintaining a -2 balance in there, and we have 0 in TWL. So we're out of balance on that item. But this one here is saying it is both a stock and non-stock product in SX, which is totally fine for SX, but it is not totally fine for TWL. In TWL, the product can only be one or the other. So this is something we need to reconcile. We can't have the same part number in SX as non-stock and stock and have TWL understand what that means. It's got to be one or the other. Joke. So that's the out of balance report. Willet is what I wanted to go through here next. And I wanted to show you it in this fashion to show you that this is possible. So this is the screen, Willet, and we're looking at data that is received from TWL. You see this explanation here. If I hover over it, it says, are we looking at transactions sent to TWL or received from TWL? And we're looking at any transactions that are non-inactive. So if they're still running or they failed to run, they're going to be in our list, and there's nothing here. And I'm looking at the last year of history. So this doesn't need to be a mess. This is totally possible to keep clean. Now, this company in particular isn't gigantic. They do hundreds of transactions a day, maybe not thousands or tens of thousands. But they make it a priority to stay on top of this. And if there are failed stock adjustments or orders that don't ship or what have you, they stay on top of it daily and make sure to clean it up. Again, because they know that letting things sit here for longer is just going to make it harder to figure out what went wrong. And if we're failing to stock adjust our inventory, we might try and sell something in SX that we don't have. Or if we fail to receive a PO, we have inventory sitting in our warehouse that we don't know about yet in SX.enterprise. And that's some pretty important stuff, right? Alrighty. So I said I would go fast. Hopefully I'm not going way too fast. That's the housekeeping list. Again, I think there's a lot more information underneath some of these, especially out of balance and Willet, that can go on for a while. But what I wanted to show you next here was some of the stuff that I have in Hyperion. So just as a couple examples, things that you're not going to get out of TWL, but are absolutely possible to do with a solution like Crystal or Hyperion or MITS or anything like that. And this first one here is just looking at product records that have barcode cross-references in SX. So maybe you use this at a go live to keep an eye on how many barcodes you have left to capture before you can go live. Or maybe you're using this in an ongoing basis, like this right here, to keep an eye on who your most offensive vendors are. What products do we have that do not have barcodes. What vendor should we be calling and saying, hey, Emerson Climate Technologies, almost half of the stuff that we carry of yours does not have a barcode on it. I'm assuming, of course, we've gone out there and tried to capture any barcodes. But here's Emerson Power Transmission, right? 99% have a barcode and it's captured. That's the way we want it to be. We need to give a phone call to this vendor and say, hey, why isn't your stuff barcoded? You're making life difficult for us. No wonder why you make picking errors. All your stuff looks the same, part numbers are similar, and you got no barcodes on the product. Okay? And so I've sliced and diced this a few different ways. This is by vendor. This is by rank of the product, so we can see how critical is it. You know, if most of the not captured barcodes are D rank, then who really cares? Right? Maybe that's not that important. We don't even move that stuff. But if we have A or B items that are not captured, I really want to look at what these are and go get them and get them fixed, or at least make sure that we're putting our own barcode on there. Okay, the other one I want to show you here from Hyperion is something I did for productivity a long, long time ago. And this is just looking at the transactions table in TWL. That's where pretty much everything happens. So I'm taking the transactions and I'm throwing them all out here. And then I'm doing something that's making this a little bit more fun. And I'm not just counting up the transactions or summing them in some way. I'm applying some logic here. And the logic that I'm applying is based on a metric that we have, a goal that we have in place. We know what our expectations are by transaction type. So picks, we expect them to be able to do 60 picks in an hour. Right? For receipts, we expect them to do 15 in an hour. Right? So we've broken that out, and then what this essentially does is per transaction applies a time element to that. So I'm not gonna sum up just this person did 100 picks. I'm gonna sum up how long I think that should take. And then if we look at one of these pivots here, we can see that Ben, for this day, January 4th, did about 4.9 hours of work according to what our goals are. So hopefully he worked half a day. But you can look at this information by day, by month, by individual function, so I can see out of all my people that are picking, who's the fastest, who's the slowest. Again, you know, the way I have this structured here, they'd be spending the same amount of time. I know this guy right here, Ed, is a manager, so the expectation for him is significantly lower. And I'm totally fine that he only has 15 hours worth of picking in January of this year. That makes sense. But the rest of these guys, Ben and Justin, if they're my main pickers, if Jason is also one of my main pickers as well, if these guys are spending roughly 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, working the same schedule, he is half as productive as my other two pickers, my other two main pickers. Okay? So that's something fun. And we've talked about this before and said, I think I'm only scratching the surface here. You could go in with the transaction and identify the product, what product category it's in, or the bin, what zone the bin is in, and decide, well, you know what, this is coming from a forklift picking zone. Our expectation there is only 10 picks an hour, or this pick is coming from the shelving zone, and we expect 100 picks an hour there. So you could break it up into much more detail by the transaction if you want to break it out by zone or by the product type or something like that. I think we can take this a lot further. And there's clearly nothing in TWL even close to this. You can get a summary of transactions. That's about it. Okay. So let's move on to some of the stuff I have here open in MITS. So I have this thing called overpicks. Where are you? Last one, of course. Okay. So just wrote a simple SQL query to show how many times we're picking more than we're requesting. So you must have the flag on in TWL that allows you to pick more than the request is for, the for ship flag. And we allow that. This is a distribution center. So we say if someone orders 11 and there's 12 in a case, we're just going to pick them 12. We're not going to break it open and pull one out and send them a partial case. So this helps identify perhaps for the buyers, what items are we repeatedly overpicking, and why is that? What is the case quantity? Maybe the case pack changed from the vendor or the standard pack and we didn't change it in SX, so we're constantly trying to transfer it by 12, but now it comes in 20s, right? So all this data easily gets pulled out from TWL. Let me go back. I thought I had one more here. Yes, sir. Hold on a question here. Okay, this question is about MITs specifically. So MITs is just a tool, like Hyperion is just a tool, like Crystal is just a tool. The point I want to make here is it doesn't matter what solution you're using, you can go into the database and pull this data out. As long as you understand the tables and what you're looking for, and TWL isn't the most straightforward, I guess, not as straightforward as SX sometimes. You can pull this data out and organize it however you want. And the biggest reason that I do it is so I can sort and filter and email things. You know, if I run a report, I run that 0 and negative inventory report in TWL, I can't do anything but look at it or print out a piece of paper. Right? I have another example here of something I want to show you, and it's this one right here. This is tiny. I'm sorry, I'm on a laptop. Okay, so that is not what I want to show you. This is, and this is just pulling out where we have inventory, what the class of the item is, and what the class of the bin is. And the purpose here is to say, this thing is fantastic, we pick it all the time, and you got it in a slow bin, a hard to reach bin. And now I understand what these zones mean here. This is a hand high pick, and this is a hand low pick. So I need a ladder to go get this. So these 6 items right here, I know I'm picking all the time because they're A rank in TWL, and I have them in a spot that I need a ladder to get to. So I send this report out once a week to the inventory control person and say, you got to move this stuff. Our pickers are going there multiple times a day, and we need to reduce steps or ladder climbs. Okay. All right, and the other examples I have up here are what I just said before about replacing the standard reports with a SQL report so you can sort filter. Here's the active RTs. Now I can email this to someone, the receiving supervisor, and I can say, these need to be closed. Right? And these are very simple, straightforward. It's the same data that's in TWL, but they just don't have to go get it. I can push it to them. Here's the 0 and negative inventory. Cool. All right. We did all that. We did all that. All right, the last thing I want to show you is this is in beta right now, and is not super awesome because there's some data missing here. But I mentioned before, Graphic Solutions said, this is fantastic that we know where to get all these reports from, but I don't want to have to run 17 different reports to figure out what needs to be put away still, what needs to be picked still. Can't I have that all on a dashboard? And so they hired a local company in Dallas to kind of put this data together for them on a dashboard and are able to put that out on screens in the warehouse and say, hey, pickers, there's a whole bunch of stuff to pick in this area. Let's get moving. Or don't forget to put this stuff away that's in this receiving dock. So this is pretty much the same thing here, just that MITS is working on. And it's bringing in all these different elements. So putaways that need to be done, that's broken currently. But orders that have yet to be dropped. So we know what's in the pipeline, orders that are already dropped, when they're due, by what carrier, how many are in what stage, if they're in pick, open, packed, so on and so forth. But I encourage you, you know, if you're doing a lot of the report viewing now, if you've even written some of your own reports, to dive into something like this, where I can put everything onto one dashboard, where I can present this to the users in the warehouse or to each supervisor. I can give them just what's pertinent to their department. And it can be something that's updating on a periodic basis. I think that GSG said their data updated every 3 minutes or 7 minutes or something like that. So this is something that the pickers can be out there taking care of business and they can look up at the screen 10 minutes later and they can see the damage they've done. They can be like, we are making progress. We got 25 more orders or 50 more lines to do for truck 1, and then truck 1 can get out of here. Okay, and you don't have to go run any reports to do that or ask the order manager to do that or your supervisor or what have you. It's just there for you. All right. I'm going to take a sip of water. Cycle count accuracy. Okay, for this one I don't have an example for you other than the standard TWL report, but I certainly want to encourage you to build your own. Once again, you can't do much with the TWL report, but I wanted to show you how to get to this report, and then I wanted to explain it because I think there's not a lot of clarity to this. So I'm in TWL Online, and I go to Reports, and I go to its Management, Cycle Count Accuracy, and it's going to ask me what cycle counts do you want to view. And I'm really just looking for a summary for a period of time. Maybe it's a month, maybe it's a quarter. I ran it for this whole year to date. So that took a minute, and then it brought the data, put it together for me. And what I'm left with is this gigantic report here that lists every single cycle count, the expected quantity, quantity before, and the actual quantity, quantity after. And what I want to explain here are these three figures. Okay, what these mean are how many bins were counted 100% accurate, what percentage of them, how many items, and how many units. So here's my explanation of how this works. If you had 3 bins and there were 2 items in each one, that's 6 items total, 2 and 3 bins. If 5 of them were counted correct and 1 was off, your location accuracy is 2 out of 3, right? One of the bins had an item that was off. Your item accuracy is 5 out of 6, and your unit accuracy is however many units there were. That one's pretty straightforward. So in my example right here, this wave, 8317, you can see how many counts are on here, right? This is 8317. Whole bunch of stuff. We count all that, and it says, here's your accuracy, location accuracy. Well, that was 79 different bins were counted, and we were 78, 100% accurate. So some of those bins had 1 item, some of those bins had multiple items, but we nailed all of them but 1 bin. And there were 83 different items, 82 of which we got 100% correct, 1 of which was wrong. So our accuracy is 78 out of 79 for location. It is 82 out of 83 for items. And then we were only 1 unit off, 1849 out of 1850. So that's 99.95%. So if I go all the way down to the bottom, I'm going to get a summary of every single cycle count wave for this entire time period, which was January 1st to September 29th. And what I'm going to see is my unit accuracy is pretty fantastic. We have the right amount of stuff, right? 99.59%. But what my inventory and location accuracy are telling me is maybe it's not in the right area all the time. Or as we can see in some of the examples here, it is just one of many that is wrong, one item of many in many bins that is wrong, but our unit is always a very small discrepancy. So the inventory accuracy of this company is pretty good, pretty awesome. But if you're seeing high numbers here, like 95 to 98%, you're not losing stuff, you're finding it. But if your location accuracy is low, 50, 60, 70, you're just finding it in different places than you expect. Hope that makes sense. All right, let's get this guy out of the way. And then the last one, I just wanted to talk about this because I do not have an example, but I want to explain why I think this is critical. There is a variance report in TWL for your physical inventory, but again, referring back to can't sort, can't filter, can't add any other additional functionality. I think it's garbage. You should build your own report. That way you can add dollar value in there. You can sort and filter. You can add something like a percentage off. So something that is very straightforward to do and you should focus on when doing a physical inventory or go live is a unit of measure problem. The folks counting are confused by the unit of measure, and something is 10 times or 100 times off. Now, that might only be a 10-cent widget, so it's not going to appear when you filter to above $1,000 or $500 or whatever you care about, but it's something very easy to identify and remedy by just doing a percentage off. This is 1,000% off or 100% off. Okay, we counted accurate, but we were just confused on the unit of measure and multiplied it by 100 or 10 or what have you. Okay, does that make sense? Hope so. So I answered a couple of questions along the way, but I did want to try and keep this to 45 minutes, and we're getting close to that. We have some time for Q&A, but I wanted to open it up to any questions now. We can go back to anything that I've gone over, and then also I just wanted to ask if anyone has anything else to share, a report that they've created, either a standard TWL report that I didn't go over here that they're in love with, or something they made themselves that makes life a lot easier. Please do share that. And again, if you post the question or you raise your hand, we can take you off mute and you can explain. You can tell what it is that you did or your side of the story or what have you. So please feel free. Someone ask questions. Don't be shy. There are no questions, Gary. So I either answered it all or, oh, there's one. Thank you, whoever did this. The TWL reports can be opened in Notepad. That is absolutely true. Thank you, Jerry. They can be, and with some finagling, you can get them into Excel somewhat. My whole point to all of it is if I'm going to run this report every single day, and every day I need to export it to a file or import it into Excel and mess with the columns and stuff. Why spend 20 minutes every day doing that when you could recreate that report in your SQL reporting solution, whatever it is, Hyperion, and just run it each day, and you don't have to do any changing to the data or the format. And you can even filter out the garbage you don't care about. Right? Something I didn't mention was inventory discrepancies, since we have a couple minutes here. I do see a hand raised. Let me touch on this first, and we'll come back to you. The inventory discrepancies in TWL, some folks are crazy about these. Some folks totally disregard them, and I'm semi on the disregard camp. So inventory discrepancies, if you're not familiar with them, are simply put are anything where you're not doing what you're told. So these are transaction type PA. This is a put away. I told you to put it away in unpick. I told you to put it away in HLC, and you put it away here. Now, this is a cheat that a lot of people use. These aren't real bins. These are fake bins, and they tell the person doing put away what rank the product is. So there isn't any existing inventory of this product, and we don't want TWL to just pick a bin, because it might pick the wrong rank depending on what is open. So this is a fake bin, and it tells the guy, hey, this is a C item. Look for a not so good spot. So they put this on shelf 6, which is up in the air. And then this one, it said, ooh, this is actually a good item. You should put it to HLA, and they put it hip height on shelf 3. Okay, so these inventory discrepancies, I don't care about all this nonsense. I don't care about that at all. Maybe I don't even care about the picks, because procedurally, my pickers know what to do when they short pick when there's missing inventory. They let someone know, right? They let a supervisor know. What I might care about are cycle counting discrepancies, right? This is where someone counted and the quantity was incorrect. This is concerning to me. These have not been reconciled, and that's a problem. Okay, so again, you can use this. Or you can make your own report and say, just show me inventory problems of this transaction type and give me all this detail. Poof, in 20 minutes of your time, you've recreated this report in something that you can sort, filter, email, what have you. You're not getting any of this out of here. You're not even right-clicking and loading Excel, right? Not going to happen. Okay. So the raised hand, Gary, can you help with that?
Yeah.
Mary has her hand raised.
Yep, hang tight. Okay, Mary, you're unmuted. You can speak.
All right. Hi, guys. I had a question about, you mentioned the barcodes that are captured. You're doing your query looking at the cross-references. The problem we ran into just recently, we're trying to manage our non-stocks. We have UPC information entered in through, like, for ICSC catalog records, but that barcode information is not in TWL, so the barcodes do not scan. Are we missing something, or is there a flaw for non-stocks being created from the catalog information?
I don't think I know the answer to your question, but I think that it should be working. So it's not a straight up non-stock, it's an ICSC.
Mm-hmm. So we create our non-stocks using ICSC information. We have the the cross-reference barcode records in ICSCC. So it all works in SX, but when the non-stock hits TWL, it does not scan. And I don't see the UPC information in the non-stock in TWL. So I was wondering if we were supposed to be somehow transferring the cross-reference information, or I've got to have an open ticket with Infor. I'm trying to get something from them this afternoon, but I thought maybe you might have the answer.
Does not sound super familiar to me, but sometimes I just need to jog my memory. Since you are bringing this up, though, excuse me, I do want to mention this because this is not where you would expect it to be. And hopefully everyone knows this because it stumped me for the longest time. This is an item.
Right.
And here are my barcodes, right? It's under cross-references. So for a non-stock, let's see if I have any of these here. What you're saying is you come into a non-stock and you don't see it here, but the ICSCC exists.
Right.
Right. I am going to certainly look into it. All right, that's the entire issue, I think. Yeah, I would like to look into that. Does anyone else have anything to add to that? Same experience, similar experience. Jerry says, oh, good point on the OS&D. Let's go over that. They need to be set up as a barcode type, Mary. I assume you know that, but that's a good point. A lot of folks think if they have some type of interchange or cross-reference set up, that TWL is going to understand that, and that's not true. Like we have a whole, get this question panel out of here. We have a whole bunch of cross-references set up for this part, but those aren't the ones that TWL cares about. TWL only cares about that guy right there.
Right.
So if you have supersedes or interchanges, or even UPCs, if you use the UPC table ICSV, I think it is, that stuff does not count for TWL. It has to be one of these guys.
So TWL does not care about ICSV, right?
No.
No. Okay.
Good. I know that didn't answer your question, but
well, that's okay. I thought I'd try.
I have it. I'll look into it. Okay.
I'll let you know if I get anything from Infor.
Okay. Thanks, Mary. Jerry mentioned the OS&D report. Good point. Mary. So the OS&D, the purpose of the OS&D is I've performed receiving, and I want to double check my work to make sure that I didn't make a mistake. And the OS&D specifically is just going to show you where you have a difference between what is expected to be received and what was actually received. So maybe you allow over-receiving as well. So on this PO, it will say you ordered 1 and you received 2, or you ordered 1 and you received 0. Now, if that line is on back order with the vendor, that's totally fine. You run the OS&D, you look at it, yep, they didn't ship us that, let's close the RT. Okay? I know a number of receiving departments at TWL users don't run this report at all. You know, they rely on the user to not make an error. And I sort of relate this to the picking side, not doing auditing. You don't do packing. You don't do order verification. If your picker is the end all, if they're the whole game, they pick and you rely on them to be correct, then you're kind of doing the same thing in receiving if you don't run this report. But if you're double checking your picks and making sure you're doing the right thing, this would be the counterpart in receiving. After you've done receiving, don't just go closing the RT and updating SX.enterprise. run this report first, double check, hey, is everything right? Yep, everything's good. Now we can close the RT. Because as you know, or if you don't know if you're not on TWL, once you close the RT, once you post that receipt to SX, there's no making changes to it. So if you receive something by mistake, you have to fake return it to the vendor on an RM, and then you have to add it back onto the PO to say we're going to receive this at some point in the future. And if the PO was received in full, then you can't do it on that PO. You got to create a new PO. Sounds like a big headache, right? And it is. So you want your folks making very few errors. If they're making a bunch of them, this would be one way to help double check their work before you create a headache. So thanks for that, Jerry. Let's see what other questions we got here. Is there a data model available? I'm not sure what that means, Mark. A data model available from Infor for TWL. Like a data dictionary, I'm assuming you mean. That is a very common question, and if that's what you mean, yes, there is. From Infor or your channel partner, actually someone at one of our meetings showed how you can download it from the Infor Extreme site. You can most definitely get this file right here, which is the data dictionary, and this is for all of SX.e, and us little people are down here in TWL. Our entire life is within that one folder right here. But here are all of the tables in TWL, and you get an explanation of what all this is, the different fields that are in here, what type they are, how many characters, so on and so forth, and even if there are default values or what have you, all that stuff is in here. So you definitely want this if you're going to start building reports here on your own. Otherwise, you're kind of blind and trying to figure out. And like I said before, some of the stuff in TWL is not that straightforward. Like a stock adjustment transaction, you would expect to be an SA. It is an AS. Okay, and good luck ever figuring that out. Okay, no more questions, I don't think. No more hands raised. I think I'm good. We came in a tad over 45 minutes, but as long as it's less than an hour, I'm doing my job. So I hope that was helpful. Again, I wanted to throw a whole bunch of stuff out there at you. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me, post on the tug board, start a discussion. I think that this is something we don't talk about very much. We're so focused on the process and the procedure that we don't talk about the reporting side, and we're left blind to most of the information. And there's a whole lot of data in TWL. We just don't really have a good way to get most of it out. All right, I'm good. Gary.
Okay, Andy, thank you so much. It was a great webinar. Have a great day, everybody, and look for the recording tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Thanks. Yep, thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.